Hello, English 1106. Welcome to Module Lucky number 7. We're doing this presentation in my kitchen because I've decided that doing these videos in the same room in my house is actually kind of boring. So we're just going to do them in all different rooms for every single presentation so you can enjoy that, seeing every single room in the house. So for this module, we are going to be talking about the ever fun public speaking, except this isn't going to be public because if it was public, the CDC would come and have my head. You can't actually go outside or go in crowds of people and do this presentation. That's okay though. You're going to be recording yourself for people though. Your classmates are going to see this. It's just going to be in the form of a discussion thread on Canvas. And if you're still kind of unsure on what you want to use for your recording platform, or you're not sure how you're going to get it uploaded to Canvas, you've got some questions about that, you can always email me, or you can look at the previous video where I kind of talk about some platforms for that, and we'll get you set up. No need to worry about that, okay? So today we're going to be talking about public but not so public speaking for this semester. And I know lots of people at the beginning of the semester told me that they don't really like public speaking. They don't like talking in front of people. Well, guess what? I promise it's not as bad as you might think. Although your concerns are valid, I understand that it can be nerve-wracking to go up in front of your peers and talk about the things that you've been researching. But one of the greatest pieces of advice that my professors gave me when I first started going to academic conferences was that you are the one that wrote your paper. You're the one who did the most research on your topic, and so you're the expert in the room, right? Nobody else wrote your paper. You're the one who wrote it. So you are the one that knows it best. The people in the room are waiting to hear what you have to say about your paper. And so that should give you some confidence, right? You're the expert in the room on your topic because that's what you've been researching. I highly doubt that anybody else in the room has been researching your topic as closely as you have. And if they have, I'm sure that all they have are questions, and we're going to learn about how to kind of answer those questions in a way that's I guess, helpful to your audience, but not nerve-wracking to you, okay? So let's move in with the idea that, you can do this. You are going to be the expert in the room because you're the one that's been working on this paper for like 6 weeks now, okay? So you're the one that knows it best, and you're the one that's presenting on it. So that's good news for you. So let's get to this PowerPoint that I have, and this will also be on Canvas for you. So it says how to create presentations and not throw up, right? So our first tip that I have for you on how to create presentations and not throw up is, well, let's see if it'll even go. Come on, computer, you can do it. There we go. So we've got actually before we get into the first tip, this is an overview of the tips I'm going to talk about. So you've got your tones, transition, body language, visual aids, time, and practice, okay? Those are actually an overview of the things that I'm going to be talking about in terms of what you should be thinking about when you're practicing your speech, because trust me, you want to practice your presentation or your speech. You want to practice before you get up there in front of everybody. If you don't, odds are you're not going to feel as confident on the day that you present, and you're not going to hit your time limit. You're either going to go too little or too far from your actual time limit, which is 5 to 7 minutes for our class, okay? So let's move on to our first tip, which is tone. You're going to want to have a you attitude, and all that means is you just want to be positive about what you're presenting, okay? You want to talk about how this will affect your audience, so you want to get them in to your presentation, and that means you want to make it conversational, which is our second tip for thinking about your tone. So conversational just means you're going to ask them to participate in your presentation. Maybe that means you're going to ask them questions. Maybe that it means you encourage them to ask questions, and you have them do audience participation. I know sometimes I ask you guys to raise your hands. How many people have done this? Or, get up and do this around the room or something like that. As long as it is in the time frame from 5 to 7 minutes, you can do all of that. It is on the table. That's what makes a good presentation, okay? So just keep that in mind. You want to keep a positive tone, a conversational tone, and you want to encourage your audience to interact with what you're saying, okay? The next thing is something that I really want to emphasize because nobody thinks about them. However, when I've been watching students do their presentations, this is what trips up students the most, and that's your transition, okay? So when you do a transition, you want to make sure that you're transitioning from topic to topic, from slide to slide, and from speaker to speaker, okay? And so lots of times when people do PowerPoints, they forget that they have to be able to transition from a slide to a slide fluidly without losing their audience's interest. And that's, I've found a lot of times, that's where you lose a lot of time, is going from slide to slide. So if you've got a solid transition from slide to slide, you're not wasting as much time. From topic to topic as well is a really good place to have a transition, because you want to make sure, just like in your paper, your audience has a connection from one thing to another, because if they don't have an established connection, they might lose your argument or your point of what you're presenting. So those are just some things to think about when you are making your outline and when you're actually giving your presentation. I highly recommend you write out your transition sentences just like you did in your paper for your outline. If you have your transition sentence in your outline, you can look on your outline and say it just like you want to say it when you're actually doing your presentation. And we'll go over that a little bit more when we do our outline section. Okay? Our next one is body language. And I know this might seem a little silly, but you'd be surprised how many people get up in front of me for presentations and they actually forget to face the audience or make eye contact with their peers. So those might seem like givens, but you don't want to just think that you're going to do that. You actually want to practice it, because sometimes when you get up there and you get engrossed in what you're saying to your audience, you forget about what your body is doing, okay? The other thing is straight posture. Some of us, forget what posture is on a daily basis. I know I do. Actually, I probably need to fix my posture right now as I'm sitting here. But what I'm saying is, I don't need you to, be straight and rigid the entire time you're presenting. But just think about, are you fidgeting? Do you appear that you are nervous? Are you are you holding your paper in a way that's covering your face? Because I've definitely seen that. And those are things that you can practice and get rid of, okay? If you do those things on the day of the presentation, is it going to make or break you? No, absolutely not. We're all human. We all make mistakes, so it's not that big of a deal. But those are just some things that to think about, so that way your audience has full focus on what you're saying and not necessarily focus on what your body is doing that you're not even aware of. And if you do all of these things that we're talking about now, eye contact, you're facing the audience, watch your posture, watch what your body is doing, that will translate as confidence to your audience, instead of acting hidden and not necessarily engaged with your audience, okay? So your visual aid, like we talked about, that is something that it really honestly can be anything that you want it to be. So those are the things we talked about, like websites. It can be a PowerPoint, a Prezi, it can be a poster. I think those are some of the things that are graphic. Those are some of the things that we've talked about in previous videos. You can use any of those things for your presentation. The only stipulations you have is that it needs to not distract your audience from what you're actually saying. You're the presentation, right? Your visual aid is exactly that, an aid to what you're presenting. So if it's aiding you, that means it's helping you. It's not a visual distraction. So make sure that it's helping you and not hindering your audience from actually paying attention to what you're telling them. And so usually a good visual aid that is not distracting is simple but effective. So simple but effective means you don't want a whole lot of words on the screen. You don't want a lot of bright, flashy colors. You want to make sure that you have a good idea of accessibility. So you want to make sure that you're maybe if you have a video in your presentation, you want to add some closed captions. That way things aren't, hindering your audience. And I have a really good video from YouTube from another presenter that I'll link to this module. And so if you want to know how to make a really good PowerPoint that's effective, I'll link it there, because he explains it way better than I do. So he can help you with that. Okay. All right. And so this one's probably going to be the most painful suggestion I have, and it's also our last one. So I will leave you with this, but you're not going to want to hear this, but please, for the love of all that is good and holy in this world, practice your presentation before you film it. If you do not, you're going to do a couple of these things that I'm listing on this screen, and that is you're going to go way faster than you might want. So when you practice yourself, you can practice your timing, and you can go slowly. You can practice doing it clearly. You can practice doing it confidently. So the more you practice, the more your confidence builds. The more you practice, the more you figure out, maybe that section wasn't as clear as I wanted it to be. So maybe I can go and, go back and figure out how to reword that. And the other thing that you probably aren't going to like, but I'm going to suggest anyway, because that's what I do. I'm a teacher. Practice for somebody. Practice for your mom, your dad, your grandma, your grandpa, anybody. Practice for your dog. I don't care who you practice to, but practice for somebody who can give you some feedback. Heck, we have lots of technology now. You can FaceTime one of your best friends and say, hey, can I just give you this presentation and see what you think? And can you time me to see if it goes in 5 to 7 minutes? That would be super great. Thanks. That's actually really helpful. And we would have done that in class anyway. So please, I say, at some point do that. Get someone to listen to you speak before you actually record yourself. So those are my tips, and the reason I even bothered to tell you all these tips is because they're all on the rubric. So when you actually do your presentation, I'm going to have this handy dandy piece of paper out and say, did they do this clearly? Did they practice? Blah, 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 blah. And that's how you're going to be graded. So that's why I'm even going over all this stuff, okay? So now you've got a breakdown of how you're going to be graded and how an effective speech should or a presentation rather, should maybe be practiced or be formed. And for this module, what I would like for you to submit to me would be, after reviewing all of these tips that I've given you, what do you think is going to be the one that's going to give you the most trouble? Which one are you the most worried about? And which one do you think is the one that you've got in the bag? Which one do you think that you're the master, the sensei on? That'll be about 2 paragraphs that you can submit to me, and that way we can just talk about your strengths and weaknesses in terms of presentations and where you think you fall under. Okay. Well, guys, that's all I've got for now. So if you have any questions, you know where to find me. I'm only an email away. And if you don't have any questions, just keep chugging along. Don't go outside. Wash your hands. Wear a mask, whatever your governor is telling you to do. Yeah, that's about it. Stay safe, kids.